Welcome back to another video of the Art Sensei. Today I have a question that was left in one of my videos by Chris Rona. I'm going to have it shown here. Hey bro, that's very cool. I'd love to have you teach me on digital art. He just started MTC and would like to see how I did the artwork. What he meant by that was in one of the videos I did the line work, and then I did painting, and a lot of people think that it's just a quick sketch and you go to that, but a lot of it comes down to structure, anatomy. So I have here an image. I blurred it out just to be safe, and just to show the basic breakdowns of how I kind of create my characters. So I'm going to use the sketch square here. Excuse me. And I really like to make the background slightly gray, and I'll use a red, like a dark red sketch, because it helps my eyes. I have a lot of trouble seeing certain colors, so the white background really screws with my eyes. So with this one, I want to show first how I break down a character. And concepting is a lot like this, where you're kind of just you're using reference, but you're not copying the reference. And what I mean by that is you could easily just go here and just draw the reference piece, exactly, but we're not going to do that. What I want to show is how this character here, anatomy-wise, it's just using simple shapes and lines to really tell you proportions of a character. And I'm only doing this for the video. You don't have to actually draw right on top of it, but you'll see why I'm doing it this way. So now when you go and take this layer, you see how it shows the structure of the character, so you can build off of that. It's just like making building a house, building a car. You need blueprints, and then it needs a skeleton. So in most cars you have a chassis, in most houses you have a basement and a structure foundation for that house. Drawing these guidelines is your structure, is your foundation. So I'm gonna get rid of this girl here, but before I do that, I'm just gonna do another layer and just get rid of that, and I'm just gonna sketch it myself, because I like to exaggerate the gesture. So you see that rotation here, so I'll really bring it out, and here do a cylinder. You always want to think three-dimensionally. So her chest is going out in this direction. And by the way, if you do want to pick up this reference pack, it's on ArtStation under Graphics Studio. I'll put a link in the description so you guys can check it out. It was $12, but it comes with 450 pictures, all different poses. Because it's really important, especially if you're creating characters, to have something to base it off of. Because you don't want your characters to have weird proportions, like have one arm smaller than the other. So it's always good to have a reference to work off of. But this part of her chest is aiming outward, so it's aiming that way, and then her rib cage is kind of against her chest, but then you see how her pelvis is kind of sloping forward. So then there, and I always use circles for the shoulders. And with gesture, you don't want to use straight lines for limbs, because a straight line means rigidity. So unless your character, it's like holding out a gun, even with a gun, I would still use wavy lines. So that way when you go to create the arm, it kind of flows that way. But I'm getting ahead of myself. And then legs that way and that way. And I like to use like little cups, like half a circle, to show where the kneecap is. And this leg is hidden here, so we're going to just leave it like that. And then this leg is kind of falling off the table, so you can go that way. So now you have the basic gesture and foundation of the character. So now we can kind of get rid of that, or her. And I made a mess over here. Alright, let me get rid of that. Alright, so now this layer is nice, fresh, and clean. And what you're going to do is that you're going to duplicate that layer. And all this can be done on regular paper as well. I'll show you what you would need to do on paper, but never be afraid to draw lightly, so that way you can draw over it with either artist pens or just going over with a darker pencil. So now I have this other layer, and I'm going to just decrease the opacity just a little bit. And using that same tool, the sketch tool, this is where you start creating the character. So we're going to do a girl, because it's very feminine features. And she was looking down, I believe. Yeah, so you want to have her looking down. These guidelines are to help you, because sometimes I like to move around the piece. So if I'm working on something down here and then I come back up, this is helping me to remember, oh yeah, she was looking down. And just make like a basic shape for the nose, and then maybe a line or another guideline for the mouth. And here, yeah, so you do a nice little waves here, flare out, because right here it'll flare out for a female. With males it's slightly more rigid, so with a male you probably go like that, but we're gonna keep it soft. And you come down, and then right here is where the breasts are, so you could either make them big or small. This is where you can kind of deviate from the reference photo. And we'll have her holding some sort of a scroll or something like that, a big ninja scroll. And this is where you can kind of be really loose with it. It doesn't have to be super detailed. And then this was the thigh that was over that leg, and this was the knee. So now you got kind of like a simple, and some artists will just jump straight to the detail, especially if you've drawn it over and over. But if you're just beginning to do digital, if you're just beginning to draw concept characters, what I would do is just keep making layers, and then you can kind of build up to a character. So now I'm going to start adding little details. And at first the girl's really not gonna have many feminine features like the thick eyelashes or the thinner eyebrows. This is just more for placement. And you can actually get rid of this part right here if you wanted to. So let's get rid of that one. And we'll combine all these layers down here so it's easy to move around. And combine down, so now you can move it all as a group, and you can make it as big as you want, and just keep working on that layer. So let's say we wanted to kind of match her hairstyle there. And you can even make the hair go over or behind. That's going to be completely up to you. And this is where you kind of decide what design themes you want on her. If you want to have her have, you know, have armor on, maybe a kimono. We'll go with a kimono. Sleeveless, so that way we can show the definition in the hands. And then if you have trouble with hands, I would work on that separately. For now, we're just gonna do simple. And then put the scroll here. I love to work loose because, you know, the sketch never really looks like the final picture. And I always switch to my thin render to line the work. Oh, we can make bouquet. Yeah, see? On the fly changes. She probably was a geisha or a working in a theater and just got flowers for her great performance. But being loose is really important. And then here, because this leg was sitting on that table, so we'll just add the table. The leg was sitting on that table, the dress will drape over. And always think about three-dimensional when you're working, even if you're working with a 2D cartoon. Everything is still in a 3D space, so you want to work that way. And we don't really have a foot to work with, but you can add the feet gesturally. It's going to look all wonky because it's all the way at the bottom, but this is more how to build up the character. So now we have the basis for the character. This is where I go one step even further. I'm going to lower that layer opacity, and then over the group is when now you could render. This is where you change the color a little darker. You could stay with red because when you do color, when it's not black, things do look a lot better when you add color to it. So right here, oh, still too big. I was working on another piece, so that was still huge. I love to start at the face because to me, if the face starts looking wonky, like I don't want to work on the character anymore. And depending on where the light source is coming from, that's what's going to indicate your shadows. So I'm not going to really mess with shadows too much here. Now, to kind of skip ahead, because from here on is where you start to define your line work. And so what I'm going to do is now I'm going to go to another piece that I've already made the line work and show how I color it. So stay tuned, I'll be right back. Alright, so this is the jade that I did about a week or so ago. So as you can see here, these are all the layers that I used to create jade. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make that group go away real quick and show the original sketch. And you see the difference in that original sketch. But I kept a lot of the different design choices in there. The only thing I added in the final was the boots. So the boots there. So I'm going to take that out there. And this is where I'm going to show what I did to color it. So we'll start with the skin tone. So I'm just going to get rid of these and get rid of the highlights real quick because they can be distracting. Alright, so the skin tone here. So what I did here is I picked one color one base color, and I make that my layer. If you really don't want to mess with it, you can go right on that layer. So if I wanted to, I could just color right on it, and kind of mess with it there. But I didn't do that. So what I did is I duplicated the layer. So this layer right above it is the one that I do all the changes to. But just for this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that layer just to show you. Oh no. So I'll lock the layer. And with this one I didn't have anything to reference. So I'm using my head to figure out where the light sources are coming from. So I'm going to grab that skin tone, and with this arrow here, whoop, I locked it. We don't need to lock it for this, but light is going to come from this side, and light's going to be coming from here. And I indicated that with the background here, so you see this kind of like a light green and light purple. But that's going to be for the highlights. For the skin tone, what we want to use is the same skin tone and just vary the hue here. So I'm going to go a little darker, or closer to pure red, and you see how it changed. This is where she was. So you could shade just by changing the color, but we're actually going to go a little bit darker. And I think I could keep the render. So then, since the light's hitting it from this side, just darken that area. And light's going to hit it here, so just darken this area. Same thing with the palm. There's this light that's hitting it here, and then there's light that's hitting it there. So these are all the dark areas. So now all those areas are dark. Now there's lights hitting it here, so we're going to grab that same color, and we're going to go closer to yellow and just lighten up a little bit here. And a little bit on the fingers, just coming over the crack there, a little bit there. And then this is where you would blend it. So you just take the blending tool and just blend it just a little bit. And then from there, so this is where you would blend the two, and it kind of creates that mid-tone that you wanted, even though the skin's already a mid-tone. But you can keep messing with it. If this is what you're aiming for, more of a sharp, cartoony shade, then you're good to go to the next level. And this is the next level here. So these all work together to kind of give it that chocolate kind of skin tone. And I left this one here unshaded. And the highlights will do most of the work for you later too. But I've been messing around so much with realism lately. So I'm never really happy with just shade and highlight. So I like to kind of mess around with it a little bit more. So you follow that same process with every section. So the belt, I added this layer to the shoes, and same thing happened here with the top. So what I did with this other layer here is added the color dodge to kind of make it more vibrant. So I hope that helped Chris. And if you have any other questions, Chris, happily leave them here in the comments section. I appreciate you asking the question. I love breaking down how I do things, because when you're in the groove, you don't really think about it. You're just doing it. So it's nice to kind of take a moment and go through every section, kind of show how I bring things to life. But as always, thank you for watching, and don't forget to keep it open.